And this is the global forecast for the astrology of the year 2021. So the first thing I want to look at is the big picture, and the big picture of 2021 is the square from Saturn to Uranus. So let's break this down into its component parts and look at it at a basic level before trying to attribute meaning to it, and then I'll look at the individual months of the coming year. We've got Uranus in Taurus. It's been there a year and a half, 2 years. It's going to be there another 5 years. Uranus brings change, which can be chaotic, dramatic, sudden, unpredictable and disruptive. It can also be stimulating and innovative and original and exciting and adventurous. It can be independent with freedom and liberty as its catchphrase. It can be chaotic and dramatic and pull the rug from underneath your feet. Chaos and stimulus. Taurus is a sign that's known for its fixedness, for its ability to be dogmatic, perseverant, reliable. It's also got a very strong attraction to value systems, whether they are in terms of personal ethics and morals, values, possessions, property, money, food. Taurus is not that comfortable with radical change, so to have Uranus in Taurus is a bit difficult. And I do feel this is an ongoing theme, that Uranus in Taurus is slowly changing global attitudes towards value systems, what it is that is important. It may have been over the last 50 to 100 years that the idea of profit and making money has always been at the top of the agenda. But go back to the last time Uranus was in Taurus, which would be the 1930s, and look at what was happening in the world then in terms of value systems. This is when the drive for profit, the stock market booms were really happening, and all of a sudden everybody wanted to make money. There's no such thing as a fast buck, and the deals that were going on at that time were out of proportion, and they set the scene for the next 80 years. Now Uranus and Taurus is saying, well, do we really still have that mentality around the need for insane profit at the expense of our humanity? And to many people, of course, the answer is yes. To many people, making money and becoming powerful is the most important thing in the world. But this is perhaps, from an astrological perspective, people who are out of touch with their true nature. Perhaps Uranus in Taurus is telling us to adjust our value systems and to adjust our priorities so that things come back more into balance. And that's why I think that long term Uranus in Taurus is going to change our attitudes towards money, and it's going to bring changes to the way that money is regulated and that runs our lives. Then we come to Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn can bring blockages, restrictions and limitations. It can also bring structure, order and boundaries, and it always brings hard work. But that can be a positive thing as well. And with Saturn in Aquarius, a sign that it's next door to its rulership of Capricorn, but it's not too uncomfortable in Aquarius, because Aquarius has this ability to be objective, detached and impersonal. And with Saturn in Aquarius, its ability to actually make the hard choices and get things done, to be able to do things in a way that's necessary, regardless of the emotional content, is very strong. So I actually view this as, especially in a post-COVID world, I think Saturn in Aquarius and helping it restructure the organisational systems of the world and the community associations of the world is actually quite a good position. But then you've got Saturn square Uranus. The need for restructure versus chaos. Order versus unpredictability. Saturn and Uranus are not comfortable with each other. Father and son, one of them castrated, the son castrated the father. They've never been that comfortable with each other. And yet here they are, square to each other over the coming year. And the paradox is that Uranus, the change bringer, is in the sign of stability, Taurus, Whereas Saturn, which prides itself on its solid and stable attitude, is in Aquarius, which is quite futuristic and radical. So neither of these planets are what I would call totally comfortable in their positions that they're in. Saturn perhaps a little bit more than Uranus. But it's going to bring a clash, the unstoppable force against the immovable object. And the immovable object will be the old attitudes towards economic and financial profit, capitalism. Saturn in Aquarius is not going to be the reverse. It's not going to push us towards socialism of any type, but it is going to bring in a more social awareness of community needs, because without this, the rise towards financial empowerment of the elite will create such an underclass that inevitably there will be some type of revolution, which nobody wants. I think it's safe to say that Saturn square Uranus is going to change the way we manage money. It's going to lead to an economic shift in perspective. It's probably going to lead at the physical level to some type of depression at the financial level. There's not going to be a lot of spare cash next year for investment, and it could even lead beyond depression to some type of forced shift in the way economics are managed. The big companies are going to have to be reined in and put to work for the benefit of everyone, not just themselves. This is the background to 2021. In the foreground, January is easily the most difficult month of the year. And the middle 2 weeks of January are fraught. The middle 10 days of January is easily the most difficult time of 2021. And I do believe that whatever happens in the middle 2 weeks of January will send shockwaves and fishing lines into the rest of the year. I do expect some pretty big changes to be happening at that time, probably quite sudden, unexpected, unpredictable, possibly disruptive, and it's going to cause some pretty fundamental shifts in our perspective on the way the world is run and our attitude towards government and leadership. As we get into the end of January, there's a Mercury retrograde which dominates much of February, just as Saturn begins to square Uranus. So I suggest that February itself is going to be a time of sort of post-operative recovery. We're in the recovery room, so to speak, and I suggest that much of February we're going to be in a kind of metaphorical daze where we're thinking, my God, what's been going on? How do we get out of this? And as we get into March, the new moon in March, conjunct Neptune, along with Venus conjunct Neptune at the same time, does suggest that we're going to see the results of the vaccine, at least at the temporary level. It will be seen, the vaccines will be seen to work at the temporary level. The long-term effects of the vaccines, however, is something that is open to question, and I suggest that we're not going to see the long-term effects of the vaccines until we're into the third quarter of next year. But March itself seems to offer some type of hope and movement forward in a way that we've not seen for 12 months from that time. And as we get into April and May, astrologically speaking, it's quiet. Yes, we're going through some type of shift in financial and economic affairs, and the recession, possibly even depression, is beginning to bite, and the new reality is becoming established. But I'm not seeing any sign of new challenges or crises or trauma as we get into mid-March onwards through into April and May. June itself, there's a little bit of a stinker in the first week of June when Mars in the sky will be in late Cancer opposite Pluto, but that's a standalone thing, and that's more likely to be isolated, specific large events which don't really connect with the larger development of the year. But, June and July, April, May, June, July, with the exception of that Mars opposite Pluto at the start of June, don't seem to offer that much challenge to the world, at least compared to the first month of the year and much of 2020. As we get into early August, the new moon on the 8th of August is very strongly square Uranus. Sun and moon together square Uranus. So I suggest that around early August we are going to see some further startling changes in connection with economic and financial management, and that's going to lead to a further shift in emphasis towards what is important and what isn't important, both personally and globally. And as we get into September and October, so the astrological energy starts picking up again. There's a lot of attention being paid to Pluto by both Venus and Mars at the start of September, so I imagine this is going to lead to quite a lot of startling news coming out around isolated personalities, and there's going to be some interesting developments around secrets and lies coming to the surface around the start of September 2021. And as we get into October, there's the new moon at the end of the first week of October. The Sun and the Moon and Mercury will all be conjunct Mars. So this is a little isolated power point. Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, all in the same point around the 6th to the 8th of October in the middle of Libra. So I suggest this is going to be, again, quite a time of action and development and sudden things coming to the surface. And this emphasis of bringing poison to the surface continues as we get into October, because at the end of October, Mars will be square Pluto. Again, that's pretty much a standalone situation. But as we get into November, a lot of things seem to coagulate, to come together, to stick together. The new moon on the 4th of November will be opposite Uranus, pretty much exact. On the 10th of November, Mercury and Mars will be together, both strongly square Saturn. And then on the 17th of November, Mars in the sky will be opposite Uranus. So I'm looking at this period of the first 2 or 3 weeks of November as being quite fraught, quite dangerous. Not dangerous to individuals, but there's likely to be quite a few developments in the world, specific actions, more of the outrage type or the natural disaster type, something that's active, dynamic, immediate, not economic, not political. November's a bit of a difficult time, and I will concentrate more on that the closer we get to it. Once we're into the second half of November, things ease up, and December 2021 is quiet. So 2021, once we're past the end of January, the hardest time is over. And by the time we're into the middle of March, we're going to be able to put the previous 12 months, March 2020 to early March 2021, behind us and hopefully move on. But I do expect the more we get into August and September, a number of changes at the financial level and as a result, a number of secrets being exposed to come up. And this is going to continue into October and November, where there's going to be a lot of changes as a result of the first 6 months post-COVID recovery. At the end of the day, the single biggest thing in 2021 is Saturn square Uranus. The need on the one hand to bring structure into the more chaotic side of life and to bring order into the way we regulate our economic and financial excesses. On the other hand, the ability to revolutionise our limitations and to start thinking of a future that isn't governed purely by profit and greed. By the time we're into the end of January, I'm going to be breathing a sigh of relief and saying that yes, from now on 2021 is going to steadily get easier, and it will be an easier year from that time than 2020. Take care, world. Bye bye.